Hey, everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldai, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are rounding out an incredible month that we've dedicated to this theme of protectors and defenders. And we thank very much Nokia and Flying Lion, who sponsored this particular month. Now, this particular show is part of a three-part series with TruWeather Solutions Partner Series. And you may see here that I have Stas Mozolyuk from AVISION with me, but not Don Berchoff just yet from TruWeather Solutions. Most of you probably know Don. I could probably channel Don in my sleep because I've worked with him so much, and he's made me a weather proselytizer as well. But we're having some technical difficulties with Don, who happens to be in the Bahamas, because this is, by the way, a global show. We're going to move on and we're going to focus on the partnership towards the end, but we're really focused on AVISION as TruWeather's partner and what they've been up to. So Stas is the CEO and founder of this company. And welcome to the show for the first time, Stas.
Great to be here, Don. Looking forward.
Well, I've seen you guys everywhere. I've seen you at so many shows. I know you've been working with Don on a lot of different projects, and then of course on your own as well. And I'm just super excited to dig into what AVISION is all about. But before we do that, Stas, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Oh yeah, sure. So we're present at multiple events, but we're also busy with building our product and testing it in the field. So not always we can attend, but we're happy to connect with you guys anywhere we go. As far as my background, I'm coming from a corporate world. I used to work at GE and Sony and BNP running technology teams. And this sort of led me to start the AVISION company with the focus on UTM, unmanned traffic management capabilities in the airspace management. This is a service-oriented architecture, kind of my background, my engineering background. So we're excited about the product, the opportunity. Our team had experience in air traffic management domain, and so this is a brief background, but I'd be happy to dive deeper into this as we go.
Well, I want to dive deeper because before we started the show, you said you have a really interesting origin story for the company, and we absolutely want to hear that. So please do share.
Yeah, so this is actually the true story. In our vision from the very beginning was on building the eco-friendly framework and platform for delivery and transportation through the innovation in the airspace management. And we were kind of lucky enough to get in partnership with NASA in 2015 early on. So this was the first year that we were in early R&D days. But the second component of this was really the innovation that was driving the product and the company. We started building our first prototype in the early 2015. And then by this time, September, October, we already had a working prototype with essentially a web interface that would have like all the key capabilities like no-fly zones, ability to plan the flight and monitor the flight. And the pilot would be essentially executing the flight operation in front of this web interface. We even had some of the early on 3D robotics drones that were fitted with the onboard computer and LTE module. And yeah, we demonstrated the first flight. We demonstrated to a logistics company in Kiev with a BV loss operation delivering a package. So this kind of early engagement and the technology that we've been working on, different aspects of technology, allowed us to kind of focus our vision on the UTM platform, but it was a combination of partnerships and experiments that led us to where we are today, essentially.
Oh, okay. Very, very good. Well, so you said, and I should know this, Stas. I mean, just given your name, you said Kiev. Are you from the Ukraine originally?
Yeah, I'm originally from Ukraine.
Okay. All
I've
right.
been living here since 1995, but yeah, that's where I came from.
Okay, okay, very good. And so in 2015, by the way, I mean, looking back in time, we didn't even have a Part 107 in the United States yet, and there you were, this visionary, out of Kiev talking to NASA and templating this new kind of UTM vision. I mean, that's so cool. And so you've got all these years of experience behind you building this. So that's amazing. So let's talk a little bit then about your, kind of the evolution of the platform. Let's start with what it does like right now.
Yeah, so today there are two aspects to the platform, which is support for lower altitude operations. So this is 400 feet and below for small UAS. And in that regard, we have several services that are operationalized. One of them is Before You Fly. So this is an FAA integrated service into our platform. And another one is LANS, which is ability to request airspace authorization in the controlled airspace. The LANS has been operational since 2019. Before You Fly was launched last year. And some of the other services that the platform provides for small UAS operations are, we're going to cover that in detail, but strategic deconfliction. So services in support of BV loss operation, essentially. And another set of services is built for awareness. So things like geo-awareness, traffic information, and weather information. This kind of some of the key services that UTM platform exposes and provides to the end users. And of course, the platform is integrated into ANSP systems. So there is a full integration between the regulators and ANSP systems on one end, and then connecting the pilots to the platform. The other aspect of the platform is our advanced air mobility capabilities. So this is where we have heavier drones flying at a higher altitude, air taxis of operations. We've been working on different projects since, I would say, 2020 in enabling some of these capabilities, also in partnership with NASA and the FAA Next Gen office. And those are more in an R&D phase for us, those capabilities, but nevertheless, this is an exciting time for advanced air mobility. They're more complex, obviously, than small UAS, as you have to account for different things. And I'd be happy to talk about, more in detail about that, but that's the other side of the platform.
Okay, very good. I think we have a really cool image, which is not this one. There we go. So you had mentioned kind of this one side of the platform, which is more focused on UTM, UAS traffic management, which in Europe they call U-Space. So I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper, to use your words, into some of these things. Obviously Lance, a lot of us know what Lance is, and uh, you know, so tell me more about geo awareness and traffic information. Like, what exactly are you doing with those?
Yeah, sure. So geo-awareness is, in other words, is also termed as airspace awareness. So this is the ability for the pilots to see all of their static and dynamic constraints. So things like NOTAMs and no-fly zones. And in a sense, this is already implemented in the US through the Before You Fly, services. UTM adds additional layer of complexity to this, as it assumes certain additional components like dynamic airspace reconfiguration process, as an example. So it provides more dynamic nature to the geo awareness, but in a sense, in the US, we already have that service implemented. Traffic information is an interesting service because it provides the operators with a view into both manned and unmanned operations near them in the vicinity of their operation. Manned have also implemented today. Unmanned are going to be supplemented through the UTM system. So any operator that is submitting for UTM authorization is going to have, their drone operation registered and will be visible in the platform as a as a participating aircraft information. So all of that will be visible via the traffic information service. So this is a set of awareness services, and one other key service is weather. Not a surprise. This provides insight into the conditions of the flight and the weather around the operators. And really, when we talk about weather, it's important to know that some of the providers, TruWeather is a great partner for us, but they provide truly micro weather conditions. So this is important for the operators, obviously, to see like what's like exactly near them as opposed to a couple of miles away. And so this is a set of awareness services that provides for successful flight planning and execution of the flight.
So Stas, I'm going to ask you, because I know a lot about Don's model, and he has a lot of different sensor companies, and depends on the location, you know, what that configuration is. How does that work with AVISION? In other words, you're partnering with TruWeather. Are you also partnering with these weather sensor companies, or is that like TruWeather brings that to you, and then through your platform, wherever you happen to be, you are able to provide your customers with that custom, if you will, low altitude weather information?
Yeah, we interface. This is a great question. We interface with TruWeather primarily for weather services. They consolidate different sources of weather through the sensors, through other means that they collect data, through intelligence, and we interface. And based on the location of the pilot, we get that micro weather weather conditions to the available to the operator. So yeah. TruWeather acts as a supplemental data service provider in this architecture, and we interface with them, and we rely on their capabilities to, as an expert in this domain, to provide us with all the proper that's needed for the flight planning.
All right. Well, I think perfect segue, possibly, fingers crossed, to pop Don into this show. I do see him in the background. Okay, Don, test, 1, 2, 3. Are you with us?
Well, I see you and hear you, but I'm not sure. Oh, you can hear me. Good.
We can hear you too. So we are good. We are having a two-way conversation now, a three-way conversation. So
yes,
so glad we can get you in today, Don. I know beautiful room you've got there in the Bahamas. We were talking about you. Your ears were ringing while you're trying to dial in, but great to see you as always, my friend. So Stas was just talking about your partnership with AVISION, and you know, the model that you bring as a supplemental service provider in the UTM framework, basically, and him being essentially a USS that's providing the customer's direct information and using your platform for that weather piece of it. Let's back up, everybody. And by the way, we clearly are live. You know, you can tell just from the show so far. But we've got Sean Melancon out there saying hello, Dawn and Stas. Great to be here, and interesting topic. So thank you, Sean, and everybody out there for joining us. Remember, ask these guys your questions and say hello like Sean just did. Give everybody some positive encouragement, because we love all that. We love that you guys dial in, and we have some super fans out there. So Don, let's go back a little bit. And I'm sure most people know you at this point, because I feel like in this industry, and I say this industry, it's like drones and AAM both, air taxis, you become somewhat of a rock star, if you will, you know, with the weather Dawn. And so please do. Oh, looks like we've got some family members in the background. Please do tell me a little bit about your background, the 30-second elevator pitch, and then we'll talk about TruWeather.
Sure. Well, Dawn, thanks for having me. Sorry for all the disconnects we had this morning. I'm not sure if it's the internet here, but I'm Don Berchoff. I'm the CEO of TruWeather Solutions. We're a weather data and analytics company focused on low altitude weather, which is really the big challenge for drones and future air taxi travel. I've been around for 40 years or more. I'm Air Force retired, ran an Air Force base, built big regional weather centers, worked very closely on integrating weather into mission execution for all types of weapon systems in the Air Force, optimizing their success, the bombs on target, their assets, and all that learning has really gone into TruWeather. I was also the science technology director at the National Weather Service for 4 years. It was there that I got to see all the science and technology that was trapped in the labs and universities that was not getting into commercial or government operations. I had a $130 million budget, but I felt like everything was 10 years old. I could not even get modern technology into the Weather Service offices. So I decided that the best chance we had for disrupting weather was from the outside. So in 2015, I started TruWeather. The focus at first was not on microweather, but it turned into that around 2017 once I began to see that the drones were going to become a major player. And I knew instinctively that the weather was going to be a challenge. I know a lot of people at the time said, oh, we have weather apps. You're trying to find a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. But of course, I stayed the course because I knew that eventually, once you start flying at scale, once you're trying to make money, once you're on a schedule, it was going to be a problem. And sure enough, that's what we're seeing. We're working with a lot of drone companies now. We've been in, probably have thousands of hours working in the field with different drone operators. We're learning stuff ourselves every day. We've got a great platform, V360. It allows us to bring in models from different places and different parts of the world based on the best model and the best parameters for a certain wind type or ceiling or visibility. We don't do what other weather companies do, which just takes the global models and just tries to downscale them. Really, we're trying to solve the problem. But then on top of that, it's the weather data, lack of weather data, that is really the problem in the low altitude. So when people see that, hey, why is it this is not accurate? What does 30% mean? I'm in the tropics and I've been having a ball watching the weather here because honestly, the weather apps cannot get the weather precipitation right. It's been 50% chance of rain all week. I've known instinctively it's not going to be like that. I have to admit, I've been watching and trying to figure out the tropics a little bit. And again, it's going to come down to automation will get you so far, but that last 10% or 15% of the time, it's really going to take a focus to get more flight time. And that's what we're about. We want to get you more flight time. We want to reduce uncertainty. Right now, we're seeing attrition rates of 40 to 50% for drone operations for low altitude. And about half of that's because they think they can't fly, but they can fly. And so we're going to talk more about what we're doing out there to fix that problem.
No, very, very good. And true to form, that was Don's version of the 30-second elevator bio. So
it's hard to fit 40 years into 30 seconds, Dawn.
Hey, dude, it is possible, 55 words or less, but hey, it's all good. Obviously this man is super excited and passionate about what he does, and it shows every time he talks. And by the way, we do have fans out there saying good morning. We've got Mark Ganung from the Nevada test site, Greg Larson coming at us from the Augusta Regional Airport, and lots of great folks out there. So thanks for the comments. Keep them coming, ladies and gentlemen. We love when you guys jump in the chat. Don, it's so interesting. I just put 2 and 2 together that you created TruWeather the same exact year that Stas created AVISION. Obviously an evolution over time in your thought process, your model, and that just makes sense. And so really cool how you two have found each other and come together.
Tell you, Dawn, me and Stas met at probably a 2018 event, and we were both trying to start these companies, and we actually hit it off from day one. I don't know if you all know, but I have a little Ukrainian in me also, Stas. I have about 25%. And we hit it off the first day, and I think we both have been real examples of the trials and tribulations of trying to work a new startup in an industry that is not well positioned and not knowing when you're actually going to make money, right, Stas? But we're two survivors, right? And we figured it out, and now we're sitting in a position where we can help each other. and we've been waiting for this for about 7 or 8 years, right? So this is a true love story in the making right here.
I love it all. And by the way, fun fact, Stas, I actually went to a Byzantine Catholic Ukrainian high school. So all the nuns were from the Sisters of St. Basil, and I have a lot of friends that are Ukrainian, and actually learned a little bit of Ukrainian in my freshman year. We had to take a language course. Man, that was hard. So anyway, moving on. So cool, all these interesting connections with each other. Don, what I want to do is talk for a minute about V360 because Stas mentioned it. Also, everybody out there, a couple things that you might want to check out. Number one, if you want to learn a little bit about Don as a person and a leader, he was on our Full Tilt Tech Industry Leadership Talks podcast. This man has been journaling weather since the age of 7. You know, when you talk about nature nurture and, you know, when somebody was born to do something, I don't know too many kids at the age of 7 that start journaling weather. You're looking at this guy. So his story is so cool. You should absolutely check that out. It's on my website, Full Tilt, Don Berchoff. Also, Don's been on the show several times before and also did a product release of his sensor network that he's blanketing the country with, and frankly, now the world. So check that out and you'll get a good idea of some of the sensors that are part of the network that he's put together. But Don, talk about V360 because Stas did mention it, and it is kind of it's a key component to that interface as an SDSP directly to clients, but also to the USS. So let's go ahead and pop that slide up. I believe it's the V360 purpose built, and tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
Well, this is something we've been building for 6 years. Most weather companies, I'm not saying all, but most do not have the ability to do an end-to-end solution. That was my vision when we started TruWeather in 2017. We knew that the problem was going to require better data, not just taking the data we have and rearranging the deck chairs with a little ML and AI, which really doesn't help if you don't have new data. And we hear a lot about that in the weather industry. And I noticed you asked me a question about the AI Institute I'm part of. Later, we'll talk about it. But I'm really big on data reliability and security and making sure that you know what you're getting, because weather data could be very mislabeled. There's a lot of misinformation out there about what it could do. And when it really comes down to is your weather has to be purpose-built for your industry. There's no single weather type out there that covers every industry, agriculture, energy. We're focused on low altitude weather. We pull together the best of the best teams and partners. We don't try to do it all ourselves. All our weather sensors are made by somebody else, but I pick them personally and choose them based on the relationships and my understanding of their professionalism, where the data is, and how those sensors work. We can integrate those into our workbook. So if a company out there like Augusta, Georgia airport wants to integrate an IntelliSense weather station, we can do that instantly. We can put a Tempest sensor in. We can put a Barani sensor in. We work the sensor solution that's best for your requirement. Sometimes that's going to require winds above the ground. We need a lot more winds above the ground. I'll tell you, I don't need any more surface weather stations. We need weather stations that have winds above tree level. That's the biggest challenge. Winds are the number one challenge for drones right now. And we need more wind data above the ground because what's happening on the ground is not representative of what's happening above the ground.
And Don, you know, like from talking to you, I know that, you know, what's happening right here, and I'm in Colorado Springs near the Air Force Academy, which is right up against the Rocky Mountains, is not going to be the same as 10 minutes up the road in on Monument Hill when it's like 2,000 foot higher elevation just because of the little hill they have there. So here's what I want to do though, Don. I want to transition for a second. You know, the V360 is this holistic platform that incorporates all these different weather sensors. It's highly customized. I want to talk about this market use case of protectors and defenders and specifically public safety, since this is our theme of the month. I know you had a presence at the Drone Responder Summit this past March, and you know you're doing something very specific for public safety. What are the challenges for weather that are kind of unique to public safety that you're trying to tackle, and how does V360 fit into that picture?
Well, most of my understanding of public safety came when I ran the Manas Air Base in Central Asia. In 2007 and 8, I had all the security responsibility. I had the security squadron under me. And we had some new sensors that had just been deployed. They were optical. We didn't have what we have today. And that was getting integrated into Special Operations Center. And so on nights when it was foggy, I used to just get up in the middle of the night, walk over to the SOC and ask them how things look out there. And they go, oh, everything's great, sir. I go, yeah, well, how could you tell you can't see anything? And I actually made them change their tactics, techniques, and procedures based on visibility and what you could see. Because, you know, the enemy is always paying attention. And what you're going to do is you're going to quickly find out that when it's foggy, you know they can't see you. And if you don't increase your surveillance using trucks and vehicles, they're going to know there's a hole. So I learned that pretty quickly. And I also, being in the military, understood that weather is a weapon for the enemy, and you can take advantage of that. So,
and I would think criminals, so there's a parallel here, right? When you're not only thinking about combatants and battlefields, when you think about criminals, you know, they watch, they learn, they learn actually sometimes from what's happening on battlefields overseas, and they're using advanced technologies. We know folks are using drones to drop contraband into prisons and all kinds of things.
That's right. That's right.
You know, so for our protectors and defenders, the ones that have to deal with these people, weather is also, you know, is a challenge because the enemy's going to use it against them. And they also have to deal with weather on their own side of the fence, if you will, because, you know, can they fly that drone in that weather? So I get, you know, both sides of the coin here.
So it's about anticipating and exploiting rather than coping and avoiding. And here's the thing.
I love that. That's a new tagline.
Well, that wasn't from our military days, but the point is it all applies, because if your people are trying to respond as a first responder and things are already chaotic, right? But the weather now throws another element of chaos into that. That impacts your mission readiness. That impacts your effectiveness and your ability to complete the mission. It causes people to make mistakes. So I used to run an Air Force base. I had 1,500 people. I know how people make mistakes. They make mistakes when they're under duress. And the best way that you clean that up is you take care of all the business you can before it happens. And one of the ways you do that with weather is you don't play with weather as if, oh, I'm looking outside, I put my finger up. That's not going to help you be prepared. What preparedness means is having something like a V360 in your dispatch center, especially when you start flying remotely and you're not outside and you really don't know what's happening. You have a couple of sensors out there in your municipality that is collecting wind data aloft, so you know those winds aren't a mystery. You're not going to be able to stand outside and watch the flag anymore because you're inside. You don't know where your drones don't know how much battery power they're going to use. You don't know how much loiter time you're going to have. You don't know how your sensors are going to behave in certain conditions. The key is just building weather resiliency into the plan. It's not very expensive. We're working with other detect and avoid companies. We're working with municipalities to demonstrate that weather sensor is budget dust compared to all the other money you're spending. But the effectiveness you're going to get back, and the readiness you're going to get back, and the arguments you can make to your leadership about more flight time, because you know that if you fly more, you're going to get more money, right? And so we understand all that. I used to, in the military, right, you had to fly sorties, Dawn. And if you didn't fly sorties, your boss would call you your 4-star, right? It's the same thing. So what we're trying to do is we bring all this knowledge and we can bring that to any municipality, work with other companies to package our sensors within the full ecosystem of sensors, make it really budget dust, and then come in and do some training and do some, as part of DFR, we are on the DFR working group. We have built training. I know that Flying Lion's on here. I'm going to give a call out to my good friend Steve Katz. We're talking about this right now. He's building a place called Fly City in the middle of near the Salton Lake Sea down in Southern California. This guy, he's going to have a remote flying capability where you don't have to go to the desert to fly. He's going to have a whole city set up where you can fly from wherever your home is and practice and train BB-LOS. And we're going to be pulling all these sensors into that to show people how you can use it.
Oh, well, all these connections, Barry Brennan, the CEO of Flying Lion, was on the show with Nokia. They are the sponsors of this month, Protectors and Defenders. So you gave us maybe a little bit more than I knew about this test site they're setting up. So that's super cool. I want to get to Stas, because I want to, Stas, getting back to the theme of protectors and defenders. Tell me how AVISION fits kind of into that picture, specifically when it comes to, for example, our public safety professionals and how that interfaces with your platform.
Sure, yeah. So for us, public safety has always been the focus for development of our platform from early days. And the reason is there are several use cases, and I'm just going to cover that real quick. The DFR, where it's a BV loss operation, it requires a airspace authorization and strategic deconfliction in the airspace to ensure that there is no operations that are, intersections in space and time with the operation. Similar to that, there is a case when there is an emergency and multiple teams get assigned to that as a response, right, to handle that emergency. And they may have multiple operations and multiple drones operating in the same area. So you also need strategic deconfliction between the different agencies. Another example is a wildfire where you may have both manned and unmanned operations, right? And you need deconfliction services provided. So this has always been the focus for our product development since early days of, in 2019, we had a major operation demonstrating UTM technologies in Texas and Nevada with, great partners in the FAA test sites, Texas A&M as an example in Texas, and Corpus Christi Fire Department were executing flight operations, and we as a AVISION UTM were supporting those operations in urban environments. This led to another project that we supported, Stereo Project, for wildfire use case in partnership with NASA. And more recently, this year, we're supporting public safety agencies in Dallas, Fort Worth area at the FAA key site. You probably know already that there are several mobility companies providing delivery services with the drones. And so public safety, obviously, they're pretty active, right? There are several agencies that execute daily operations in, providing safety to our to people and to the property. And it's important to make sure that those services are done and there are no conflicts in the airspace or no collisions, no people are suffering from incidents. And so UTM system is a key instrumental part in enabling this BV loss operations for all of this emergency use cases.
Yeah, so backing up, the wildfire project that you mentioned with NASA, is that the Acero project?
It's called Stereo, scalable traffic management for emergency response operations.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard of that one. I mean, NASA's got, this wildfire focus for NASA is significant. So I know they've got several projects ongoing. Haven't heard of that one. So thank you for sharing that. That's new information to me, but you're absolutely right. This idea of strategic deconfliction during disasters, in particular wildfires, is so critically important. So Stas, I want to talk about the key site in Dallas, because that's, kind of one of the hottest topics right now, I think, in the industry, right? Where everybody's watching, this is really, one of the first times I think the FAA is using this term operational evaluation as opposed to, R&D, research and development, or T&E, test and evaluation. They're saying, no, this is real stuff. Industry's driving it, industry plus public safety and other public agencies and private agencies. But, basically we're not driving it, we're watching and we're evaluating. And I think that's super. So I learned a little bit about this at the FAA Drone and AAM Symposium in July. And we had Wing and, okay, my brain is not working right now, Stas. I apologize because I'm completely blown up.
We're already authorized to operate under the FAA NTAP. That's probably
okay. So you use the NTAP, the near-term approval process for UTM, to get that approval. The reason why I mentioned Wing, and I'm kicking myself, a second company that's also
Zipline.
Thank you. Wing and Zipline are, they got their NTAP, right? And they have their own, let's call it proprietary UTM. I guess my question for you, Stas, is and I think there's questions really globally about this, if you can answer it. You're working hypothetically with public safety down there. Wing and Zipline are flying around doing their own UTM. What's the connection between you, like, to make sure everybody's communicating with each other in a particular space? Because my understanding is we're not carving out corridors, we're not carving out little boxes. This is real time national airspace integration. Everybody's out there. How does that interface work with what you're doing at AVISION and hypothetically like what Zipline is doing?
Yeah, so this is a great question, Don. From the early days, the architecture of the UTM system was envisioned as interoperable system. So this is like first come, first serve. This is where multiple providers of UTM services can basically talk to each other and deconflict with operations of each other.
Right.
Some providers in the logistics space may be vertically integrated, and they have certain USS services, for instance, flight authorization service, right, that is integrated into their product suite, and they provide the hardware, the operation, and the software to manage the operation and integrate into the airspace.
Okay.
While AVISION is more of a horizontal kind of a solution, right? That provides a multitude of UTM services. First of all, right? That's a differentiator,
including weather. We'll get back to Don in a second.
So weather, right, is and only the best of the best services. So that's one differentiator. But also, we through the flight authorization or strategic deconfliction service, we're able to deconflict flights, and we can see each other between, for instance, the delivery operations and public safety operations. So when there is an emergency, then the local PD can see who is operating in the space. They can notify, through the UTM system that there is an emergency operation going on, and a delivery can see those operations. So this is really an interoperable architecture that is geared towards multiple providers. Another sort of one differentiator is for AVISION is that we also, in addition to USS, meaning UTM services, we also provide a framework for integrating countries, right? So at a country level, we provide CIS, Common Information Services framework, which enables scalable integration between UTM system and ANSP. So we provide that technological infrastructure, right, to enable multiple USSs to operate at a country level. But in terms of the key side, we also refer to this as the UTM operationalization effort, right? So in addition to evaluation, this is a true first operational site, and there is already discussion in place on replicating those services in other parts of the country. So this is really an exciting time and an exciting project for us to participate, as this will lead to other better things in the future.
Well, thank you for that, because, I've heard just, bits and pieces of this. You've given me, I think, a better explanation than I've heard in a long time, especially on the idea of this kind of horizontal integration, because when you see these pop-up press releases of this person is doing this or this person is doing that, it does raise this issue of, okay, is this a patchwork quilt type scenario? I actually had someone from Europe contact me, a very renowned person that has worked with EASA and who was confused by some of the press releases and said, how is this going to work when there really is no regulation? They're out there flying, and are they integrating? So thank you for that. I think that was amazing. So Don, I'm going to get back to you. We've got a great question in the chat that I didn't ask earlier, as you were talking about V360 and the network of sensors that you put together. It's an interesting question from Sean, who says he's wondering whether or not it's possible to daisy chain small autonomous balloons to share weather information at low altitude, and if so, what would be those challenges?
Yes, so TruWeather, the thing we haven't talked about is we're working with a lot of small companies and labs looking at that next generation of technology that can help build this data gap below 5,000 feet. I think we want to remind everybody that 97% of the country or any landmass in the world does not get real weather measurements below 5,000 feet. Everything you see is either from a radiosonde balloon launch twice a day, which is not at very many locations, and it's only twice a day. And also aircraft that land at airports, or you get your ceiling and visibility at an airport. But everywhere in between is a model. And that model takes what little data we have, puts it into a physics-based model to try to understand what's happening everywhere else. And then what it's doing is it's filling the gap with what it thinks it's there. Well, the error rates are pretty high on that because we don't have enough data. So we look at ways to fill these gaps with new technologies, and we have built a system to quickly plug those in if they work. We are working with a company. I don't want to talk about it too much, but there is a company out there working on this type of balloon, and we are going to work with them to see how effective it is. We're going to test it in different business cases. I think I forgot to mention that we have several NASA test beds. NASA's funding these. One's in Dallas-Fort Worth. The other one is in California around Hollister Airport. We're going to be focusing on small drone operations, and then we're going to be focusing on middle mile and air taxi operations in California, small drone operations around Fort Worth with ASTM and the test site and the FAA key site. So we're going to be bringing all these technologies in constantly in these test sites and trying to test them and see how they work together. Because remember, the weather sensing system has to be a puzzle. Every one of them has strengths and weaknesses. Anybody that tells you that they have this system, they're lying, because you can't measure everything you need to measure with one system. And that's why we built the standard.
Well, yep, and that's the ASTM, what is the F38 weather standard, which, by the way, the FAA has adopted, and expect an advisory circular out, we hope, by the end of this year or soon. And what that means is, instead of these big certified, things that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can use some of these other weather sensors, and it's going to be performance based. Did I summarize that? Yes, good. All right, moving on to Stas. You said, Stas, and Don, you mentioned advanced air mobility and air taxis. And I want to pop up this slide quickly. We only have a couple minutes left. I knew our time would fly because we could talk with both of you all day long, quite frankly. But when you think about weather, when you think about strategic deconfliction and UTM, or as NASA is now calling it, kind of all the airspace, XTM, you're a critical part of that at AVISION. So just very briefly tell us, Stas, 30 seconds or less, what you're doing in the AAM space, and then I'm going to get to Don.
Sure, yeah. So we play a similar role to the UTM. We're in UTM, we're UAS service supplier. In AAM architecture, we play a role of provider of services for UAM. So similar scalable architecture with a service-oriented concept. The difference is, of course, for each sort of service, there's more complexity. So for instance, if you take strategic deconfliction, it's not only about the airspace for drones, right, where we work with the 4D volumes, but you also need to account for the ground-based infrastructure and vertiports, right? So when we deconflict, we take into account what's happening on the ground as well, with demand capacity balancing concepts as an example. And when you talk about communication, it's also more complex because you need to have, then you're flying air taxis operations are at a higher altitude and mixed up with the general aviation, and you need to have remote pilot and command communicating with air traffic controllers, right, as an example. So each sort of aspect of the advanced air mobility is like more complex than UTM. There are more additional capabilities that need to be developed, and again, this will eventually, become available in the operational environment. This is now going on through the R&D and various flight demonstrations projects, but it's an exciting topic, and we're gonna at some point have it all automated.
All right, awesome. So, and Don, I know you've been involved also. Weather is so key to advanced air mobility. I want, we're at time, but I want to ask you this question, and then I'd like to have both of you kind of sum up and certainly tell people how they can reach you. But Don, I'm going to ask you, how do you, if you're a company out there and want to get involved, for example, in the Dallas Key site or something like this, they want to get involved through that NTAP, the FAA's NTAP process. How can they work with TruWeather to get waivers for weather specifically?
Right. So the NASA's been funding us to put out these sensor networks in areas. We are going to be in working with the FAA Key site in Dallas. We are working with DroneUp already as a champion operator. We're going to demonstrate the new standard before the advisory circular is published. And to get back to the EASA question, we are innovating and they're allowing us to innovate as long as we can demonstrate we can meet an SLA, that everything's safe, everything's being done safely, including with this deconfliction. TruWeather is going to be able to use their sensors and our systems and make that approved weather for any operator under an NTAP waiver, as long as we follow the champion operator concept. So we are going to be doing that. This means that if folks work with us, they will know the sensors they're using before the rules come out, Part 108 and for the advisory circular will more than likely meet the new standard that has been published. So you can make those investments now. If you buy sensors, you don't know if they're going to meet that standard, right? But we're going to make sure that anything we do is going to meet that standard since we were involved in it. And then we will be able to support you and we would be your approved weather. So you wouldn't have to use a METAR 20 miles away to make a decision anymore. You can actually make the decision at your location based on our information. And that will get you about 30% more flight time because you won't be canceling missions you could fly. So just get with me and we can work with you on that.
Well, and please, Don, I'll start with you and with Stas. Tell them how they actually can reach you to learn more about this NTAP or just TruWeather V360 in general.
Yeah, so Don, the best way to start with us is you can download our app on the App Store or Android, or you can register on the web. Basically, it's free, and some services, including Before You Fly, which is airspace awareness, lands authorization, are also free for recreational flyers. And for more complex use cases like BV loss, we support obviously mobility and public safety agencies, right? So they require UTM support. And our services technology has been developed and tested. We're compliant with all the ASTM standards and other standards in the industry. And the regulations are coming up. Of course, the new Part 108 regulation with BV loss is coming up. We're also we're also compliant with EU regulations, since you mentioned EU, and we've been working with the Swiss government in standing up the UTM system and getting certified as a UTM provider in Europe. So we are happy to speak with other sort of agencies, countries, ANSPs, and public safety agencies in supporting the more complex operations and building the UTM system at a country level, possibly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was so great to meet you, Stas, and learn all about AVISION today. And Don, thanks for bringing Stas on as part of your TruWeather Partner Series. To close us out, Don, please tell everybody how they can reach you.
Website at TruWeatherSolutions.com. There's a contact form. Feel free to send that in. You can always reach me at don.berchoff at TruWeatherSolutions.com. I think what's important here is realize we're focused on weather compliance in the future. BV loss is going to uncover a lot of things. And when we start sharing weather information, the FAA is going to want to know that it's assured, that it's reliable, it's secure. They're not going to allow just any weather data into the system. Otherwise, that pollutes the system. That's why we have the safest weather aviation system in the world. So we're working to make sure compliance is number one. And if you work with us, we'll make sure that you are compliant. Not to mention you're going to get more flight time. You'll be safer. You'll have better training. You'll get better use of your assets.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Don and Stas, both. For everybody out there, when you think about UTM and you think about protectors, defenders, I just want to give a pitch tomorrow. Actually, we're going to be doing a product release with Grand Sky in North Dakota. They're launching Project Ultra, which is with the Department of Defense. UTM is a big part of that. And so watch that stream, because hint, hint, they're going to talk about how you can get involved in that in North Dakota. So,
And
all right.
Grant Sky is a customer, Dawn. Grant
And
Sky.
Grant Sky is a huge customer of TruWeather. Yes. So, all right. That's all she wrote, everybody. Thank you so much for your time and attention. This closes out Protectors Defenders Month. We are out here.